You know David Lynch, right? One of the most acclaimed film directors of all time. A true auteur in the purest core essence of the word. A master of the surreal. He is the kind of man that turns nightmare into reality on celluloid. His masterpieces are shown to film students everywhere across the country, including me. This is his work, and he has disowned it. Dune 1984 is based on the 1965 novel by Frank Herbert. Often compared to Star Wars, it stars Kyle MacLachlan in his first film. It tells the story of nobleman Paul Atreides and his struggle for the planet Dune and control of the spice. David Lynch cites producers and financiers stifling his creative control as reasons for him disowning this movie, as well as not having control over the final cut. In some versions of Dune, he is credited using the pseudonym Alan Smithy, a name officially used in the past by directors in the Directors Guild of America when they are unable to realize their vision due to interference from studios and producers. The version I'm looking at has Lynch in the credits, by the way. The movie went on to perform terribly at the box office when it was released, but has since gained a cult following over the years. In this video, I want to give my thoughts on it and discern if it's deserving of the cult film status. Also, there's a 2-part remake coming out soon that I hope to talk about. Just like I hope you'll talk about this channel after you hit the subscribe button and bell icon, which will bless you with awesome sci-fi content uploaded straight into your YouTube feed. The plot.
A beginning is a very delicate time.
The beginning of this movie is giving me some really serious Zardoz vibes, and I don't know if that's a good thing yet. The head in the dark background exists to give us exposition about this world. Boy, is it needed. It's not the simple, good guy on desert planet farming water, bad guy ruling the galaxy. No, there are multiple factions in this movie, coveting control of a substance called the spice, that extends life, allows space travel, and all kinds of things that don't include rolling it up and mistaking it for a plant. There's House Atreides, the house our protagonist belongs to, House Harkonnen, the primary antagonist, and those of the planet Kyton, home of the Emperor of the known universe. There are also these aliens of the Spicing Guild. They look weird, but in a good eldritch, this is what real sci-fi is kind of way. Their mouths look, the Spicing Guild aliens want the Emperor to kill Paul and all the other Atreides because they fear the Atreides will jeopardize spice production and overthrow the Emperor with their popularity in sonic weapons.
I did not say this. I am not here.
This leads them to devise a plan in which they let the Atreides, the ones they fear will jeopardize spice production, take over spice production. Okay. The order to kill Paul worries the Reverend Mother, since she and her sisterhood, including Paul's mother, have worked to breed the universe's super being, and they suspect Paul Atreides is the result. But first, Professor Xavier must test him in shield combat. You mean Picard, you might say. No, we don't discuss that franchise here. This is a safe space. These effects have not aged well. This might be some of the goofiest combat I have ever seen. I honest to goodness love the idea they're going for.
Now, guard yourself untrue.
Fighting while being surrounded by an energy shield. Only slow movements can penetrate it. That's cool. But this execution is so laughably poor, I just cannot forgive this. I'm pretty sure this looked dated by the time it came out. On a positive note, it's a good time to mention this movie has some really good quotes. Insanely good ones. Because after that scene, Paul speaks to his father and he says this.
Without change, something sleeps inside us and seldom awakens.
These quotes are from the book, I'm sure, but they are really cool. No wonder they get referenced everywhere. Here are a few more of my favorites.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
We have entered the time when all will turn against us and seek our lives.
I see plans within plans.
He who can destroy a thing controls a thing.
Next, Paul's mom brings him to the Reverend Mother to be tested to make sure he is the one. There sure is a lot of phallic imagery in this movie. I'm not going to point it out every time it happens, but it is there. Meanwhile, on Giedi Prime, the Harkonnens plot to kill the Atreides by using someone in their own circle. I knew it was only a matter of time before a large stone head made an appearance. The Baron then kills one of his slaves, unprovoked, by removing his heart plug. I think that's a really gruesome and neat way to keep someone imprisoned and in servitude. Why have I never heard of this? A heart plug. After almost 40 minutes into this movie, we finally make it to Dune, a desert planet populated by crate dragons. Tremor monsters. No, giant sandworms. The people of the planet Dune, officially called Arrakis, prophesize that a Messiah will come and lead them to freedom. We get a glimpse of one of the sandworms attacking a spice mining vessel. I see where all the budget went, because this scene is epic.
Spice. Pure, unrefined spice.
This guy is fiending for some spice. Get a hold of yourself, man. Jeez.
Just kidding, have some drugs.
The Harkonnens then attack the base on Arrakis, killing Paul's father and leaving Paul stranded in the desert with his mother. And here we run into a personal issue I have with this movie. Paul and his mom. Now, Paul's mom looks way too young and is way too hot to be Paul's actual mother. There's no way around it. This actress is a babe. She makes the actual love interest look completely tame in comparison. After they get chased by a sandworm, Paul gets to meet the actual love interest and her tribe of freemen. They make him and his mom their leaders, basically. And I call her his love interest because she isn't an actual character. She does absolutely nothing in this movie except exist so there can be a female character in love with our protagonist. Over 2 years, Paul gains a new sister that grows rapidly somehow, while he and his new army of freemen bring production of spice to a standstill, pissing off the rest of the universe. And he adopts the name Paul Muad'Dib.
I'm afraid my brother won't be very pleased with you.
His sister has some really bad child acting. Another thing that's probably the worst I've ever seen coming from this movie.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
The young actress has a lisp that's distracting and her words are horrendously dubbed over. She must be a producer's kid or something, because this is sloppy. He drinks the water of life to gain superhuman powers and learns to control the sandworms, also realizing that they and the spice are one. They are the source.
Now I truly control the worm and the spice.
He uses his new army of sandworms to invade the Harkonnens and the capital mining city. Look at these guys telling the Emperor he needs to find out what's going on.
Do not speak. Listen. You do not have more than this one chance.
He is talking and you can hear animal snarls supposedly coming out of his mouth being translated into words. But the snarls don't even match his mouth movements. It's so strange, I love it. But the raid on City Arrakeen is really dull. It's almost impossible to tell who's shooting at what and who's on what side. This action is just lame and goes on for way too long. This movie has a serious problem with pacing. Not just in this scene, but in others, and in various ways. I'll come back to that issue later, though. His sister kills the Baron pretty easily, and Paul confronts the Emperor. He fights Sting, and I can't believe I haven't touched on this yet, but his costume is so 80s. If someone boiled the 80s and then made it precipitate in a beaker, this costume would be the result. After Paul kills Sting, he makes it rain on Arrakis, being called their Messiah. The themes. The thing about Dune is that its plot is completely recycled, even when it came out. White guy from well-off population goes to exploit native population for resources. White guy sympathizes with natives and becomes a better native than the actual natives. White guy turns against his own people. For more information, see Fern Gully, Dances with Wolves, Lawrence of Arabia, Pocahontas, Avatar, etc.
These white men are dangerous.
Despite that, I love the Islamic undertones this movie and by extension the book has. I'm not going to talk about them here for fear of YouTube yeeting this video off the internet. The pacing. This movie has pacing issues. First of all, it's loaded with exposition, and I still had no idea what was going on when I watched this movie the first time. Since this movie was based on a book and is already 2 hours and 15 minutes long, there's not much Lynch or the producers could have done about the exposition dumps and narration in place of acting and actions. They used the line,
as you know,
40 minutes into the movie. David Lynch of all people should know not to use that phrase in a screenplay. Beyond that, some of the scenes don't flow together well, and some drag on and are agonizingly slow, especially the action scenes. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening on screen, while other times way too much is happening, due to all the exposition and all the nouns you have to memorize. I'm sure Dune is easier to follow if the viewer has read the books, though. I'm glad the remake is being split into 2 parts because I think that will fix the pacing tremendously. The conclusion. Dune is a movie with serious flaws to its pacing and effects that gets carried by its source material. It's so distinctly 80s in its cheese that it makes up for it in some areas. It's carried by its source material, but it's carried hard nonetheless. The dialogue, setting, design of the worms, Islamic undertones, and story when it can be followed all shine through and can make this an enjoyable watch on occasion. Now, there are extended cuts of this movie that fix some flaws and create others, but I can't get my hands on them. Still, if you haven't seen this movie, I think it deserves at least 1 or 2 viewings. Leave what you think about this movie in the comments. I try to read every single one of them. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Most importantly, share this video. Remember to drink some water, all that jazz. Have a good one.